Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Toine Manders. I am the Vice Chairman of the International Alliance of Libertarian Parties. And I've been asked to tell you today about how I found freedom in an unfree world. This is also the title of a book written by Harry Browne, published in 1973. A book that has had a very great influence on my life. It's one of the most inspiring books I've ever read. And that's why the talk I'm about to give will not just address the book, but will address as well how I applied the ideas in this book to my own life. And I will also address how you can use those ideas to increase your freedom in your life. Harry Browne was born in 1933. He was active as a libertarian activist in the 1950s and 60s. He was also very famous as an investment advisor, wrote a lot of contrarian books about investments. In 1973, he wrote the book this topic is based on. And by that time, he had decided that political activism was a bad idea. And I'll explain why. The premise of his book is that we live in an unfree world, a world dominated by governments that regulate us, that have made hundreds of thousands of rules for us. There are so many rules these days that most people break a few of them every single day without realizing it. An American criminal lawyer has written a book called 3 Felonies a Day, in which he explains why he believes that the average American commits 3 crimes a day without even realizing it. That's how many rules we have. Now, he also explains that our freedom can be lost not just through governments, but also because we accept restrictions from other people, from family, from friends, from co-workers. And he explains how we can liberate ourselves from these infringements of freedoms as well. There are basically 2 reasons why most people aren't free. They're simply not aware of their opportunities, or they have accepted certain assumptions that restrict their freedom. And to become freer, you have to become more aware of these options, these opportunities that you have, and you need to get rid of the bad assumptions. Harry Browne addresses in his book a lot of traps that restrict our freedoms, but traps that we can get out of. We just often don't realize that we can. And he describes these traps in his book. The identity trap is the belief that you should be someone other than yourself. You should conform to what society expects of you, to what your family, your relatives expect of you, what your friends or coworkers expect of you. And this is a very easy way to abandon your freedom. If you truly believe that you have to please other people, then you cannot be free. Another form of the identity trap is the assumption that others do things the way you would. And if you try to influence other people's behavior or decisions and treat them as if they were like you will fail in your objects. Another trap he describes is the intellectual trap, that your emotions should conform to some preconceived standard. So you've accepted some standard because other people have taught you that you should accept it. You've never actually thought about it yourself. You haven't examined it. You haven't decided. It's not in your own nature. It's not following from your own principles. It's just something you've accepted. And that, too, is something that will cost you your freedom. The emotional trap, the belief you can make important decisions at a time you have strong emotions. So Brown says you should think about the rules for your life, your code of conduct, your code of conduct. You should decide up front how you will deal with difficult situations. Don't wait until the difficult situation arises and then make the decision on the spot. The morality trap, the belief that you must conform to a moral code created by someone else. He believes that you should set your own moral code. You should not simply accept a moral code that the government has developed for you, or that religion has developed for you, or any other group of people. You need to make your own decisions. You need to set your own principles. You need to think about the consequences of your actions and base your decisions, your principles, on these consequences. The unselfishness trap, the belief that you must put other people's happiness before your own. If you decide to be free, if you decide to live your life as you want to live it, then there are going to be other people who will call you selfish for making that decision. Try to shame you out of living your life as you want to live it. But obviously, the people who try to influence you by calling you selfish, what they're doing is they're telling you what to do. They want you to conform to what they selfishly want you to do. So there's no reason to be shamed into following their edicts. The group trap, believe that you can accomplish more by sharing with and involving others instead of operating on your own. What's especially bad is the idea of shared responsibility, shared rewards. The classic example, of course, is a business partnership. Well, let's say you have a number of business partners, and any money that is made flows into the partnership and is then shared among the partners. What will often happen is the partners will resent each other over time. They will believe, probably each of them will believe, that they are contributing more to the partnership and getting less out of it, and resent the others, and they will try to motivate others to do more. But a partnership, a business partner, usually has just 2 or 3 or 4 partners. Imagine what goes wrong if the partnership involves thousands or millions of people, governments. Then the whole thing becomes a whole lot worse. Then people will no longer have any incentive to contribute to this huge pot, and they will concentrate their energy on finding out how to grab as much from that pot as possible. Government is an important issue in his book. So he describes 4 government traps. Government trap number 1, the belief that government performs socially useful functions that deserve your support. In order to discuss government, we must first define government. Government is usually defined as an organization that has a monopoly on the use of force in a given territory. What makes government unique? What makes government different from any other organization in society? It is that it uses force, or threatens to use force, not just in self-defense against aggressors, against murderers and rapists and robbers and fraudsters, but against anyone that doesn't follow the rules that government has set. Anyone that doesn't pay the money that the government wants. All these people are threatened with force. Government is a way to achieve your goals through the threat of force. Let me contrast government with voluntary organizations like businesses or churches or charities. These private voluntary organizations, they all need money. The way they achieve that goal of raising money is by getting people to voluntarily give them money. In the case of a business has customers who pay a price, who voluntarily pay for a service or for goods. Why? Because they assume to be better off. They assume that by buying the product, by buying the service, by buying the good, they will be better off. They will be happier. They will be more prosperous. And they're happy to voluntarily give up something else, usually money, to obtain the good or service. That means that all parties to the transaction expect to be better off, expect to be happier or wealthier. A business also needs people to work for the business. How do you do this? Well, by hiring employees. How do you get employees? By offering them a deal that's more attractive to them than any other deal they can get. You offer them terms that they like, that they couldn't get anywhere else. You offer them the best deal possible. So people work for it voluntarily. They voluntarily are willing to invest their time and effort in exchange for a wage. What about capital? Businesses need capital. How do they obtain capital? By persuading investors to invest their savings, by persuading them that it'll be in their own interest, that there will be a return on their capital that will be worth their while, so that these investors voluntarily invest. The same thing is true of a charity, a non-profit organization. Also work with other people based on the principle of voluntarism, voluntary transactions. People give money to charity because they support the goals of the charity voluntarily. People work for charities, often as volunteers, because they support the goals. How is government different? Well, when government needs money, it raises taxes. If you don't pay taxes, then bad things will happen to you. You will get letters that become ever more threatening. If you don't pay, then the government will send people to your home to grab your things. And they will send people to your bank to seize your bank account. If you don't let these people into your home when they come for your things, they will come back with more people who carry guns, and they will break into your home to take your stuff. And if you resist, they will use all the violence that is necessary to get what they want. And they will not only use violence to break your resistance, they will kidnap you and lock you up in a cage. If you try to outsmart them by not filing a tax return, that's a criminal offense in almost every country. In many countries, it carries a sentence, a jail sentence, usually of many years. In my country of the Netherlands, the sentence is a maximum of 4 years for not filing a tax return. Now, the very fact that governments must use force to get resources, they must use force to get capital, that they must use force to get people to obey their rules, to achieve their goals, that proves that governments do not perform a useful function. Any organization that performs a useful function can get people to pay for it voluntarily and get people to work there voluntarily. They don't require force. Second government trap is the belief that you have a duty to obey laws. Now, what is a law? A law is a rule that some people have written down in some book, and they've published the fact that they've written down a rule in a book, and they threaten you that if you don't follow their rule, they will put you in a cage. They will send out men with guns to put you in a cage. That is a law. Why should you obey laws? Just because there are some people who wrote a rule down in a book, that doesn't mean that you have a legal obligation to follow the rule. I mean, there are plenty of rules that were written that almost no one today would believe is just. I mean, slavery used to be perfectly legal, and running away used to be a crime. Having sex with a person of the same gender was a crime in almost any country just 100 years ago, and is still a crime in many countries today, often even carrying capital punishment. In today's world, there are dozens of countries where having sex with a person of the same gender carries the death penalty. Now, how could we ever believe that just because somebody thought up some rule and wrote it down in a book and published it, that means that you now have a moral duty to obey them? But if you believe you have a duty to obey laws, that obviously is a drain on your freedom. I mean, it's one thing to be rational about the risk of getting caught, and to be rational about the punishment imposed, and take that into consideration when you make your decisions. It's quite another thing to believe that you have a moral duty to obey all laws and all rules, regardless of consequences, regardless of the risk of getting caught, and regardless of the penalty imposed. A lot of people, for instance, believe that it's wrong to look for loopholes in laws, to look for ways to legally avoid taxes and regulations, because they believe you have a moral duty to obey laws, even the intent of the law. That's an obvious way to lose your freedom. Government trap number 3, the belief that government can be counted upon to carry out a social reform you favor. So a mistake that a lot of people make is they have some idea of what changes in society would be good ideas, would be beneficial, and then they believe that it's a good idea to spend their time and effort and money on bringing about social change through government, by joining political parties, by working as a volunteer for campaigns and candidates, by donating to campaigns. The amount of time that you can spend your whole lifetime doing this. You could spend every free minute of your life doing this. And if you are just one individual in a country that has millions and millions of people, the chances of you spending so much time and effort on bringing about these changes will actually pay off, that there will be a return on this investment of time and effort that's worth your while, is close to zero. Let me give you an example. Let's say your parents have saved a lot of money. They worked hard and spent very few of the money they made, and they have a huge amount of savings, and they want to leave it to you, and they don't want you to pay your inheritance taxes on it. And you don't want to pay it either. There are two ways to obtain this goal. One way is to become politically active, is to start a crusade for eliminating this tax. And if you succeed, if you spend 20 years of your life fighting it and you finally succeed and it's finally abolished, it's not just you who won't pay the inheritance tax, it'll be everyone else too. But the return on your investment in terms of the reduced cost to you is probably extremely low compared to the 20 years you put in to achieve this purpose. Another way to achieve it is to find a loophole, find a legal way to avoid paying the inheritance tax and following it. And that's probably going to cost you a lot less and have the same effect. And this is an example of a social reform that would actually be beneficial. Of course, a lot of people join organizations, become politically active, not to increase freedom, but to decrease it. A lot of people join movements to make new rules, to have more restrictions on our freedom. Government trap number 4. The fear that the government is so powerful that it can prevent you from being free. Well, government is usually a large organization that has a lot of people working for it. It usually takes about half of a country's national income and spends it. So in a sense, government is big and powerful. But at the same time, government is very inefficient and very bureaucratic. Government cannot hire a policeman to check out every individual all the time to see what they're doing. They have limited resources. They can't follow everyone around. And that means that usually there are ways to circumvent the government. Usually there are ways to do things the government doesn't want you to do in a way that's either entirely risk-free or is very low risk. But a lot of people don't realize this, and they're awed by government. A lot of people also don't have the idea that it's possible to circumvent laws, to avoid laws, to find legal ways to do what they want to do. They just obey. I don't have time to go deeply into all of the traps, so I'll have to just mention them quickly. I can recommend everyone to read the book if you want to know more. The despair trap, the belief that other people can prevent you from being free. For all other people that do not hold government power, they don't really have any power over you. Relatives, co-workers, friends, they have no power over you. If they try to restrict your freedom, if they want you to do what they want rather than what you want, if they don't want you to live your life as you want to live it, all you have to do is ignore it. You can go ahead and do what you think best. If you want to retain the friendship or the relationship, you can explain to them that you have decided to do things they don't approve of, and it's up to them if they still want to be your friends, if they still want to remain in a relationship or not. And if they can't treat you with respect after your decision, you don't have to maintain the relationship. You can cut ties. The rights trap, the belief that your rights will make you free. You're in the trap anytime you count on anything other than individual self-interest to cause him to give you what you want. In general, it doesn't work. Even if you believe you're entitled, just because you believe you're entitled and declare that you are, doesn't change anything. The utopia trap, the belief that you must create better conditions in society before you can be free. You can't change the fate of a nation, but you can do a great deal to make sure you're not affected adversely by it. And I already gave you a couple of examples of that. The burning issue trap, the belief that compelling social issues that require your participation. Well, like I said before, life goes on, the world goes on. There are millions and millions of people that influence government policy, influence society. You're just one of them. In general, you're better off taking steps to improve your own life and steps to improve society or government policy. The previous investment trap, also known as the sunk cost fallacy, the belief that time, effort, and money spent in the past must be considered when making a decision in the present. Harry Brown gave a nice example of this. He once asked a woman out for a date. He had tickets to an opera, to a night at the opera. And the woman said, well, I'd love to go, but I can't. I have a course that night. And I've got $400 tied up in it. And so he asked her, well, are you enjoying the course? Are you getting something out of it? She said, no, but like I said, I've got $400 tied up in it. So what she was telling him is that first she wasted her money, now she's going to waste her time too. The box trap, the assumption that the cost of getting out of a bad situation, any uncomfortable situation that restricts your freedom, is too great to consider. And his point is, usually when you're in a situation you don't like, there is a way out. There's a price to be paid, most certainly, to get out of the situation, to get out of the box. But what you should do is determine what the price is and determine if it's worth it, if it's worth paying the price to get out of that situation. Most people don't do this. They're just stuck. They don't consider what is the price and is the price worth it? What is the way out? The certainty trap, the urge to act as if your information were totally certain. Humans are fallible. We all make mistakes. If you think you're infallible, if you don't consider the possibility you might be mistaken, and you're wrong, that means you are restricting your freedom. You're restricting your opportunities. Harry Brown describes two ways to make changes in your life, what he calls direct alternatives and indirect alternatives. Direct alternatives are available to you without the need to persuade anyone, without the need to influence anyone. For instance, quitting your job. You don't need to persuade anyone to let you go. It's your decision to be made all by yourself. Then there are indirect alternatives. That means that you must influence someone in order to get what you want. You must influence government policy. You must influence your relatives to give you more freedom, to allow you to do something. You must influence your friends or your coworkers or your boss to go along with what you want. And if you fail, then the outcome will be that nothing changes. And he says it's a bad idea. Do not rely on indirect alternatives. It's extremely difficult to persuade other people. If you're going to spend a lot of time on this, you're probably wasting your time. Focus on direct alternatives. For instance, find friends who appreciate you for who you are, who respect you for who you are. You don't have to then convince them that you're right. Their principles and yours are already in alignment. Their values and yours are already in alignment. No need to persuade them. There are 7 billion people in the world. There are a few out there who share your values and your principles. Find them. Make friends with them. Another way to put this is a prayer. Now, I'm not a religious person, but this prayer has a lot of value and a lot of truth in it. I first came across it in a book by Ayn Rand, who is also a very famous atheist, and she too believed there's a lot of truth in this prayer. Here it goes. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. A free person spends most of his time making positive decisions, choosing among attractive alternatives. Most people, however, spend most of their time making negative decisions, deciding which alternatives will be the least unpleasant, trying to keep things from getting worse. Now, the second part of the book, he describes how you can be free. He says, don't be false. Don't change yourself based on your environment. Consistent action is part of freedom and conform to others' expectations is a form of giving up on your freedom. What you are is the most valuable asset you possess for finding others, and the best way to find those people is to advertise who you really are. Doesn't mean you have to be evangelical about it, but if you let people know what your values are, what your principles are, then the people who appreciate them will flock to you. To make marriage and relationships work, each person should have their time alone, their own friends, their own interests. To spend time together should be preserved for things you enjoy together, so that every moment together is a joy rather than a burden. And most people want just one partner, one husband or one wife. Most people are not into polygamy. If you need only one person, then by far the smartest thing to do, of course, is to find the right person who appreciates you for who you are, so you don't have to make compromises. Well, other of his points is, don't overreact to difficult relationships by destroying the good parts while trying to weed out the bad. Emphasize the good parts in discussions with the others, but make it clear that you won't participate any longer in the bad parts. When you prove that you're willing to be honest, no matter what the short-term consequences, others will accept your word more easily. Brown's rules for life. Never expect anyone to act from your knowledge, perspective, or objectives. Assume that his viewpoints differ in some ways from yours. Never lie or appear to be something other than what you are, unless you're sure that your life, or the life of somebody very important to you, is literally at stake. And never invest any resource that you're not prepared to lose. Never take on new responsibilities or time commitments or liabilities without recognizing what must be given up to accommodate it. Never use someone's property in any way that he doesn't approve of, unless your life or the life of someone very important to you is literally at stake. Never focus your attention on anyone's weaknesses, their temper, sloppiness, poor logic, dishonesty, whatever. Recognize these shortcomings, take them into consideration, but don't waste your time complaining about them. Instead, pay attention to what your actions should be in order to deal with them. And never quibble over a price you didn't expect to pay. Pay it. Move on to better things. Never form a partnership, an agreement in which responsibilities or rewards will be shared for any purpose. He has a whole chapter on this topic. If you're in business or are planning to be in business, I highly recommend you read the chapter. And never forsake your rules because of somebody's actions or opinions. When you achieve freedom from the urge to control others, your life is truly your own, to make of it almost anything you might want. I read that book soon after I discovered the Libertarian movement in 1992. And like I said, it was very inspirational, very motivational. And I also obviously looked into his advice of not becoming politically active, but he did make one exception in his book. He said, if you enjoy the challenge, that may be a good reason to do it anyway. And the way I look at political activism is, it's my hobby. It's what I enjoy doing in my free time. It's like other people who collect stamps or go dancing or go kite surfing. To me, political activism is my hobby. That's what I enjoy doing. So yes, it's true that it's very unlikely that you as an individual can bring about great social changes, but so what? Neither does collecting stamps. So I became politically active. In 1993, the Libertarian Party of the Netherlands was formed, and I was active in this party from day one. I became its first political leader. I became the prime candidate during the national parliamentary elections, and I became his chairman for about 2 decades. Around the same time, or a little later, I also started my first real job. And my first real job was advising military draftees on how to avoid the military draft. I consider the military draft a form of slavery, or maybe put a little bit more mildly, it's forced labor. Now, forced labor can be appropriate if you're a murderer, or if you are an armed robber. I mean, some people deserve forced labor, but not innocent people. So when innocent people are forced to labor and even put their lives on the line, go fight somebody else's wars, that's a huge injustice. And to me, making a living out of advising draftees and how to avoid the draft was an excellent choice, an excellent career choice, because it meant I could do my work that I really enjoy doing, that I could do passionately, that I could, at the same time, do what I think should be done anyway, which is help people avoid being victimized by the state, and put food on the table at the same time. Now, this is a photograph of some Dutch draftees before the draft was finally put on hold in 1996. The government already had some liberalizations among the rules it imposed on draftees. One of them was that they could grow their hair. The draft was, in a lot of countries, it was put on hold or abolished, but a lot of them still have it. As you can see on this map, about half the countries still have it. Harry Brown himself also decided to become politically active again, even though he stopped doing this in the early 70s. In the mid-90s, he got the itch to become active again, and he decided to run as a candidate for president for the Libertarian Party. And he wrote a campaign book called Why Government Doesn't Work. In 1996, there was a Libertarian National Convention in Washington, D.C. that I attended, where he was elected to be the nominee for the Libertarian Party. And he was fairly successful in that he got more, the Libertarian Party peaked in the year 2000 when he ran for a second time in terms of membership, in terms of donations collected, in terms of candidates elected, and so forth. And like I said, in '96, the draft was put on hold, so we had to find something new to do to put food on the table. And as I explained, I really enjoyed making a living advising people how to prevent being victimized by the government. So I decided to focus on business owners, because I consider business owners to be a persecuted minority, because they're the ones that are forced to collect the taxes and pay them to the government, and they're usually the ones that are harassed the most by the government in terms of regulations being enforced. So I decided to study the law and find loopholes, legal ways for business owners to avoid government rules and regulations, but especially government taxes. So tax avoidance has been the focus of my career since 1996. And I believe that it not only benefits me because I can make a living, and not only benefits my clients because they get to keep more of their hard-earned cash, but it also benefits society at large, because government is a very damaging, it's an organization that causes a lot of damage in society, that undermines our freedoms and our prosperity. And if you pay taxes and decide to pay more than you owe under the law, if there are legal ways to avoid tax and you choose not to use them, in my view, that makes you morally culpable. It makes you morally co-responsible for the damage that government does. It makes you co-responsible for the bombs they drop, for the wars they fight, for the army of bureaucrats they hire to make rules and enforce them. Therefore, I believe that people have a moral duty to avoid tax whenever they can. Don't feed the state. In the year 2001, there was a worldwide movement called Walk for Capitalism, which I participated. And that sign I'm wearing says, taxation is theft, tax evasion is self-defense. Now, I'm not advising any of you to evade tax because it's dangerous, because it's illegal, because you can go to jail for many years. I instead recommend that you avoid tax, you find legal ways to pay less tax. But that doesn't mean that I judge tax evasion as immoral or bad. I believe it is a human right, the right to self-defense. If you catch a burglar in your home, and he has the nerve to ask you where the family silver is, and you lie to the burglar and claim there is no silver even though there is, in my view, you've done nothing wrong. You may have lied to the burglar, but he doesn't deserve the truth. It's not fraud to lie to a burglar, and it's not wrong. And the same thing is true in case of taxation. It turned out that a lot of business owners in the Netherlands were quite eager to pay less tax and became our clients, so business was going well. So we moved to a nice office. And a few years later, we opened offices in other countries as well, specifically in Cyprus and Dubai. And Dubai is a country of interest in terms of the theme of today, startup nations, because Dubai has 17 free zones. And these free zones are indeed very free. Here's a whole list of taxes that most countries have, but that Dubai doesn't. And most of these taxes, by the way, not only are they not levied in the free zones, they're not levied in the entire emirate. The list is so long, I won't read it to you. Here's the list of the taxes they do have, which is much smaller. And a lot of people believe that taxes are extremely important because government is extremely important to promote growth. And this is, here are some statistics about economic growth in Dubai. Since the country became independent, the economy has grown by 231 times. Now, one of the emirates of the UAE has a lot of oil, but if we don't count the oil, then the non-oil trade has also grown by 28 times from 81 to 2012. Between 75 and 2008, it grew by factor 11, making it the fastest growing economy in the world. And if you focus on the years 2000-2008, the average growth rate was double-digit, over 10% per year, outpacing all the other fast-growing countries. Like they're outpaced even Hong Kong, even Singapore. So the idea that we need taxes for a country to grow, for economy to grow, for poverty to disappear is just wrong. And this is, of course, only one example. And you might claim, well, this is an outlier, there's some special reason here, it must be the oil. Well, if you think that, I would recommend looking into studies done on economic freedom. There are several organizations in the world that study the correlation between economic freedom on the one hand and indicators of growth and happiness and human welfare on the other hand. And what all these studies will tell you is the more economic freedom, the more economic growth, the more poverty disappears, the more life expectancy goes up, the more child mortality goes down, the more unemployment goes down, the more GDP per capita goes up. So all the things that almost everybody wants can be achieved through economic freedom. I'll give you one example. 160 countries were studied, divided into 4 groups, from economically least free to economically most free. In the economically least free countries, average life expectancy is 60. In the economically most free quartile, average life expectancy is 80. In other words, overreaching governments that overregulate and overtax, they take 20 years of your life. A slogan I've often used in my political campaigns is taxation is theft. Here is a radio debate that I had with a person who advised the Dutch government on tax policy, a professor in fiscal economy. He basically wrote a lot of the tax laws that we have or advised on it. And he thought, when he came to the debate, he thought it wasn't serious. He thought I meant taxes were just too high. He hadn't prepared for an opponent who really believed that taxation is theft. And when he found out that that's what I believed, he became so angry that his face turned red. I've given hundreds of seminars through the years on tax avoidance and asset protection for entrepreneurs, freely accessible to all, including the press. I need to skip a few of these slides because I'm running out of time, so I'll get to the conclusion. Government's good at one thing, knows how to break your legs, hand you a crutch and say, see, if it weren't for the government, you wouldn't be able to walk. It takes far less effort to find a move to the side that has what you want than it does to try to reconstruct an existing society to match your standards, which is part of the theme of today, start your own country. And finally, some advice for activists. Be realistic. Do not expect your activism to lead to major changes in the short term. Otherwise, you'll quickly become disappointed if these high expectations are not met quickly enough. Think of it as a hobby. Do not expect that you will easily convince your audience with your strong arguments that everything they believed for all those years was wrong, and that you will quickly erase the influence of decades of brainwashing by government schools. What can I do? Question I often get. Find out what you're good at, what you like, and go do it. If you're good at writing, if you enjoy writing, write books, write articles, publish them. If you like campaigning, go do it. If you like teaching, become a teacher, become a professor. It's a very good way to influence the next generation. It's very hard to influence people over 25. Most of them are set in their ways. They've already decided what they think is true and how society should be structured. Very hard to convince them. Young people in general are open to new ideas. Make sure that the time you spend on activism is not self-sacrifice, but time that you spend in a pleasant way that contributes to your happiness in life because it is challenging or it gives you satisfaction. Remember that an important advantage of being active in the liberty movement is that you get to know nice, interesting, like-minded people who share your values. You are likely to make friends for life, and that this is at least as valuable as achieving political goals. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Great speech, thank you. There is an opinion, there was a slide that said don't feed the state.
Yeah.
And don't you think that like involving in politics actually feeds the state with your energy?
That depends on what you do. I mean, if you become politically active and you spread the ideas of liberty, spread the idea that the government is actually wasteful, is damaging, hurts us, then that, to me, does not contribute to more government. But if you fight them, then you're not helping them.
But the goal of Libertarian Party is to get into the parliament, right?
No, the goal, well, let me rephrase that. The Libertarian Party, since I have left as its leader, has changed its course and is now more moderate. When I was the leader of the Dutch Libertarian Party, our goal was to infiltrate government and to eradicate government. It's like when you want to, in a medieval tale, if you want to fight a dragon, and the way to do that is to be eaten by the dragon. Because if you cut off its head, 7 new heads will grow. But if you're eaten by the dragon, you can fight it from within and kill it. So infiltration can be very effective to fight your enemy. As long as you realize that the way forward is not to become very active in very small steps, like, I don't know, 0.5% reduction in tax or something like that. I mean, the purpose, the way I see it, the purpose of libertarian political activism is human freedom, is a free world. And a intermediate goal towards the final goal of a free world is spreading libertarian ideas, spreading the message of liberty. And becoming politically active in a political party and participating in elections is just a method. It's not a goal in itself. It happens to be a very effective method if used properly. If you ask me who the two people are who are probably more successful at spreading the message of liberty than anybody else, I would say those two people are Ayn Rand and Ron Paul. Ayn Rand did it by writing books, especially writing novels. And Ron Paul did it by becoming politically active, by running in elections and getting his message out that way. When Ron Paul was not elected president, that doesn't mean his campaign failed. I think his campaign was a great success because he has spread his message very effectively by being politically active. The fact of the matter is that a lot of people will give you a platform, will spread your ideas, help you spread your ideas by giving it coverage if you run for office. They will give you a lot more time to speak if you run for office than if you don't. That's a fact. Take advantage of it.
Thank you. One more thing. There is a meme on the internet. If you don't like ISIS, join them and change the system from within. What do you think?
Yeah, in all wars, typically the warring parties will do just that. They will infiltrate. They will try to get people in high places within the enemy, fight it from within. It can be extremely effective. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. And of course, if you infiltrate in a way that is secret, that is secretive, then you might need to do things you consider immoral. So I would probably not be the person for it. But the type of infiltration I'm describing, everything is out in the open. We're telling everyone who wants to hear that our purpose in infiltrating the state is to fight the state and to reduce it as quickly as possible and as much as possible. Any more questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.